Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about pre-fill, and pre-fill is so important. It's the first thing that we do on every job that we walk onto. It is the first step before we apply any tape, and it's something that we've always done forever. And it's actually, I think, one of the most important steps before you even start taping, and it will make your tape finish turn out better. So first things first, I am going to be pre-filling with Easy Sand. Easy Sand has a lot of plaster of Paris in it, so it's going to set up hard. And then this 20 minutes here means I have 20 minutes of working time. The minutes have nothing to do with the strength of the Easy Sand. So if you're using 45, 95, whatever it is you're using, they're all the same. It's just the time that you have to work with the product that's going to be different. Comes in a powdered form, and you add it to water. So we just cut this top part of the bag off. And then I have some clean water in here. Depending on your temperature of water will also depend on your set times. If you're using hot water, or I found during the winter, if we have really icy cold water, it will make this set up faster. So room temp, it was just some bottled water that we had sitting out. So definitely think about that also when you're using this. And you can make this as thick or thin as you want. Being that we are pre-filling, I'm going to want it to be a little bit thicker because I'm going to be filling joints and gaps. So I don't want it to be running out or running forwards out of the mud and kind of like pooching forwards. I want it to be thick, and I want it to stay in there. And Easy Sand sets up pretty dang hard. So definitely think about that when you are using this product. You don't want to be leaving a bunch of gaps or not gaps. You don't want to be like overfilling a bunch, because you can sand it, but it's not very fun to sand. It's Easy Sand, but that doesn't mean it's easy sand. And this is very different from our pre-mixed and boxed muds because it is a chemical set, and it's just a completely different mud with all the plaster of Paris in there. So it's great for pre-filling because it sets up very hard. It has very low shrinkage. And typically when we walk into a house, we can go ahead, pre-fill with our 20, and then turn around and then start taping, and the pre-fill is dry. So here's my mix. It's pretty thick. I don't want it super thin. I'm not really worried about how it looks. It could be a little lumpy right now. I really don't care because it's all going to get covered. So let's go ahead and check out what we want to be pre-filling. So when I'm looking at pre-filling, I'm not going to be pre-filling this right here. That's pretty good. That's tight. There's no gapping there. This I will be pre-filling. So what'll happen, and also too, it's uneven right there, so I can tell that flat right there is higher than that side right there, or that side is higher than that side. So pre-filling can help with, number one, fixing gaps. Number two, it can help with evening board out. So if I was just go tape this right now with paper tape, what's going to happen is the tape is going to sink in really deep into there. So that whole gap, that paper tape is going to sink in there. This side is going to be harder to wipe down than this side because this side is proud. So the tape there that I'm wiping down, I'm going to actually have to come and like do a whole little separate thing and wipe it down all on its own. It has more tendency to wrinkle and blister, especially when we have gaps like that back there. So I'm just going to take my hot mud, or my Easy Sand. I'm going to jam it back there. And just kind of get this started. And it doesn't need to be perfect at this point because we're just going to tape right over it. All I want to do is make sure it's all lying down pretty nice and flat. I'll probably take it just a little bit farther. Okay, and then I'm going to leave this because it's totally fine. I don't need to pre-fill it. It's nice and tight. And then down here, because the board had to get cut to fit, so it's just cut right here on this edge. It's also uneven. I'll go ahead, pack my mud in there. Again, you gotta remember, we're going to be taping over these, so all of this is gonna get covered. But it is important to note, you don't want to be building it up too much at this point. Fix that too. So let's say I went through and I wipe like this, or I don't wipe it tight. That then just caused a whole nother issue that wasn't even there in the first place, because that will dry hard like that and then I have to tape over it. And I've already screwed myself because I've already overfilled immensely. So when we pre-fill, it's really tight because we're still going to be building up all of our coats on top of this. I will pre-fill right over here. I will be pre-filling stuff like this. And another thing that I will do too is take a razor blade sometimes if there is like fuzzy paper in this angle from the cuts, maybe they don't get cut super clean, so the brown fuzzy paper, I will clean that up too. But when you pre-fill angles, what it does is it really helps when it comes to taping and finishing, because it's not going to be sinking in and sinking back into that angle. And then I'll fix this right here. And I want to keep things pretty clean too. Like I just went back into that angle and cleaned it up a little bit. I really do want it to look nice and clean. Then sometimes too, we'll just kind of give like an eyeball down there. If there's any blistered rock, like that almost looks blistered. I don't think it is though. But if there's blistered rock, you can usually tell there's a big like wave. So like right down here. So as you can tell, that board got busted on the bottom. It happens all the time. Whoever it is, you can just go ahead and take a knife in there. I'm going to remove all of the broken rock. I'm going to remove any loose paper. And then I'll get this started. Again, we're pre-filling. So it's just our first initial fill. And you'll see that, unfortunately, it can happen a lot at the tops with the corners and the angles, because board gets dropped when it's stocking, when it's getting delivered, something is happening. And if you drop them on the bottom like that, they'll just bust straight out. So we'll go ahead and check the rest of this flat out. Pretty happy, oh, right there. See how that's a little bit higher right there? That's it. That's as far as I'm gonna go. I don't like to do my screws with hot mud. Some people do, some people don't. I find that when it dries, it pooches forwards and then my screws are proud. So you have to wind up going and scratching. You have to go and scrape them all flat because it doesn't shrink very much, but it does kind of pooch forward on some things. So I really don't like doing screws with it. I also don't like to use it on metal corner bead. I find the bond isn't as super good. And you know, pretty much we're just using hot mud in this pre-fill stage, and then we don't use it anymore throughout the job. So let's go ahead and get on the ceiling. We'll touch a couple things up there, and then I'll kind of point out some tips and tricks while we're up there. So board was just a little short here, just some framing stuff going on. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pack this. I'm gonna stop probably about right there, because that's gonna be fine, but I'm gonna pack this angle. And I'm gonna take my mud and I'm gonna go ahead and jam it up in there. And I'm gonna kind of key it in, if that makes sense. I'm taking it and I'm pushing, and I'm kind of pushing it into the back side of that board. And again, I want it to be pretty tight and up in there, because what can happen too with this, and I would say these upper ceiling angles are probably some of the toughest things to go ahead and pre-fill, is if you leave it like this, as you can see back there, it's kind of like dripping and sagging out. When you come back and you come over to tape it, that's gonna be like hard as a rock, because hot mud dries really, really hard. So you'll have to come in there, you'll have to chip it out, you'll have to do all sorts of stuff with it. So if you can kind of get it angled and keyed up into that ceiling board, it helps a ton. Okay. And again, can, I'm gonna try and keep this as clean as possible. It can even be a little shallow up there. That's not gonna hurt anything if it's like a little bit of a shallow fill and it's not super proud, because you can always, you know, kind of layer some mud up on there. I would say it's way better to go like a little light than it is to go too heavy, because then you're gonna run into a whole bunch of problems. And as you can see here, our board's uneven here. Go ahead, fix that. Let's see. I'm just gonna go like that. And pre-fill, I think, is probably just, it's so super important. Other things I will fix are like little divots like that, just kind of like a little paper. Anything loose or kind of hanging out that's busted or broken. Some things are fine though, like some of those gaps in the angle that are like, not like that big, that's okay. It'll be totally fine. I'm really looking for the big stuff. And I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy right here too. All right, and then once that's dry, you're ready for tape. So in about probably 25 minutes, maybe 22 minutes, somewhere around there, this should start to be set. It's still probably super soft, so I wouldn't tape over this right away. It doesn't really make any sense. You're just gonna be undoing the pre-fill you just did. So I'll just go ahead and let it set, let it get ready to get hard, and then I'll tape over the top of it. And you know, we'll typically go around the whole house, mix up 2 to 3 pans, pre-fill everything, and then once we start back, you know, everything's ready to go because it's dried and it's ready to be taped over. But give pre-fill a chance. I can't recommend it more. It really is really important. And we're using the Easy Sand 20. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Thanks for joining me. I hope you guys are doing great. And you can catch me, as always, under Drywall Shorty on all the social networks. Have a great day, guys.